America is about to hold an election that feels like a crossroads for the country, and already tens of millions of people have already voted, either by postal voting or voting early in places like this. But is there a simpler, more technologically advanced way of voting? You can do your banking, even your tax returns online, so why can't you vote digitally? Well, you might not know this, but in some states you actually can. This is Tara from West Virginia. She's been disabled since the age of 2.
It was very simple. I mean, literally in less than 15 minutes, I had got online, entered the information, got my ballot, voted, signed it, and sent it off.
Several companies are trialling mobile voting in this presidential election in a very limited way. Those who are eligible are members of the armed forces and people with disabilities. One called Voatz does it by mobile. Another, called Democracy Live, uses web browser. So how does it work?
When finished filling out your ballot, select Continue at the bottom of the page to move on to the final step, where you will sign your ballot and review your ballot packet.
Well, every state is different, but all of the pilots need some kind of verification that it's actually you. That could be facial ID or a photo of your ID or a signature. Then it acts very much like a postal vote. That's until you send it off. Voatz uses blockchain to store your vote. Democracy Live keeps the data in Amazon's cloud. A copy of your ballot is also printed out. The Voatz app is being trialled in a county in Utah, Democracy Live in West Virginia, and jurisdictions in Oregon and South Carolina. It's not a huge trial, at most a few thousand will vote this way. The pilots are all being funded by this man, Bradley Tusk, an early investor in Uber. He's got deep pockets and big ambitions.
You know, I'm not doing this just because I want to make it easier for military to vote or people with disabilities to vote, but because I want to radically increase turnout overall so that we move things into the center, right? And so that everybody votes. And that means having technology that can handle millions of votes.
So why aren't we all e-voting? Why aren't we all voting on our mobile phones? Well, it's because there are a lot of people who are very skeptical of the technology, and some believe there are some serious security flaws with some of these apps. I caught up with Michael. He's reverse engineered these two electronic voting systems and says he's found security flaws in both.
Definitely surprised that it was as easy as it was. I think there's a lot of things they could have done to make it much harder. But overall, those sorts of problems are not necessarily solvable in using the current technology, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to take a look at the system in the first place.
Here's the example he gives. Remember the online banking comparison? Well, this is why he thinks that's not a fair parallel.
When you bank online, you can actually see a transcript of how you spent your money. And you can say, hey, that one is this transaction, says that I spent $500 in the UK, but I live in Boston and have never been to the UK. Therefore, this is obviously fraudulent, right? You can't really do the same thing with voting, because if you can prove the way that you voted, if you can have this transcript, someone else can get a hold of it.
I put some of these criticisms to both of these companies. First, Democracy Live.
At some point, we can't hold back the tide, right? Next generation voters are going to demand next generation voting technologies. We're going to learn lessons, right? That's where we're starting small and responsibly with voters that would be otherwise disenfranchised. We don't have all the answers right now. The academic community and the security community don't have all the answers. That's why you do smaller, responsible testing, learn the lessons, and then build from there. And that's what we're trying to do right now. And we're starting with groups that are today would be otherwise disenfranchised.
I put those same questions to the founder of Voatz.
Obviously, it's new, so there will be criticism. So we welcome the scrutiny, but at the same time, a lot of that is hypothetical. Just by looking at one piece of the system without actually transacting with the system in any meaningful way, often would lead you to incorrect or incomplete assumptions.
So what did Tara think of her experience of voting online?
I like it for people with disabilities because it gives us options, and we need options because we just can't, some of us just can't get out. Some of us require special tools in order to write or speak. And I think that it's a good option for people like that, but I'm not necessarily an advocate of electronic voting without a lot more security around it.
Both types of voting have been used before in local elections, and both companies say they've never been successfully hacked. So is e-voting the future? Are voting stations like this one the past? Well, not so fast there, because even the advocates of e-voting say the technology isn't quite there yet, which does rather beg the question why it's being trialled in a US election. But perhaps these small trials may help to one day offer another safe and secure form of voting in America. Just maybe not quite yet.